Hari Om, Namaste and Swagatam back for the third and final lecture of module 2, and in this particular one we'll be focusing on the Napunsakalinga. So we've Napunsakalinga words, and in the previous lectures we had looked at the Pullinga and Strilinga words, and aham asham karomi yad bhavatam tatra abhyasasya paryaptah avasarah abhavat. So I hope you've had enough opportunity to practice there and you're beginning to recognize the similarities across various word endings. Astu. So let's move on. Module 2 dealing with the revision of nouns, the subantas and the verbs tingantaha, and we are looking at lecture 6, which is a revision of the neuter nouns, the napunsakalinga subantaha, and some verb forms of the tingantaha. So the concepts that are covered in this particular lecture will be the revision of the neuter noun forms, the napunsakalinga subantaha with different endings in all cases of the vibhaktayaha, in all numbers of vachanani, and there will be a table as we have seen in the previous lectures with all possible napunsakalinga subantaha with different endings. And as we are already familiar with the fact that pullinga and napunsakalinga share most of the word forms except for the prathama and dvitiya vibhakti and also the sambodhanam. So we'll see how there are words, what are the kinds of words, word endings that are similar in this particular chart. In the verb forms, we'll also look at the tingantaha and we'll look at the verb forms in the atmanepadi and the parasmaipadi in the basic tenses and moods, and focus of course on building your vocabulary for the napunsakalinga words, and there will be a conversation with Piyush, and finally we look at the second quality that the definition of dharma contains, which is the verses related to satyam. So 2-3 aspects of satyam, and then we'll close with a quote by Swami Vivekananda on satyam itself or truth. So moving on to the table that you're now very familiar with. So you ask the question along with me. Astu. So we are looking at the prathama vibhakti, first case, or the kartrikarakam, the karta or the subject, and in the nominative case. So prashnaha kaha bhavati, ask along with me. Uttavam. So atra asti kim mitram vidyate. So atra I have chosen to show you the atmanepadi verb vid, which is vidum sattayam divadihi. Sattayam to be, asti, in that same sense. So vidyate, vidyete, vidyante, vidyase, vidyethe, vidyadhve, vidye, vidyavahe and vidyamahe. Astu. And in the bhavishya kala or the writ, it will be vetsyate. So that is one, the atmanepadi verb that we will be looking at, and then the parasmaipadi verb that we'll be looking at is, I wanted to introduce a very different, a bit of a googly verb for you. Okay, so the verb is e, and coming from the roots in, gatau, adadi. So it's the movement, it's the verb for to go, and the verb conjugation in the vartamana kala is eti, itaha, yanti, not yanti, that's a ya, which is also to go, astu, but this is yanti. Eshi, ithaha, itha, emi, ivaha and imaha. And anantaram, look at the other common verb, which is vad, vadum, vaktayam, vyaktayam, vachi, bhwadihi. And this is vadati, vadataha, vadanti, that you are very familiar with by now. And bhavishya kala writ, tatra kim bhavati, I dhatoho, tatra I dhatu eshyati iti bhavati. Anantaram vadishyati iti vad dhatoho rupam. Astu. Idanim chart tatra punarapi gacchamaha. Atra asti. So what do we have here? Prashnam militva ekavaram punaha. Kim mitram vidyate. So which friend is? Uttaram. Tat or etat mitram vidyate. Uttamam. Next. Ke mitre vidyete. Uttaram. Ete mitre vidyete. Uttamam. Moving on. Kani mitrani vidyante. Etani mitrani vidyante. Again, rakara, because of the rakara, nakara becomes the nakara. The dantya na becomes the murdhanya, murdhanya, murdhana. And you also would like to remember that in the akaranta shabda, or for the akaranta shabda, the dvitiya vibhakti is a, just like the strilinga akaranta becomes a. Astu, spashtam. Now, let's just look at the yushmat padas here. So, it is tvam, yuvam, yuyam, and the verbs would change accordingly. Okay, so if you just had, we'll just do one of that. So, kim mitram vidyate, answer you, friend R will be tvam mitram vidya se. Uttamam. So, you have tvam, yuvam, yuyam, and अस्मत् पदस्य किं भवति तर्हि अहं तर्हि किं मित्रं विद्यते उत्तरम् अहं मित्रं विद्ये उत्तमम् अस्तु लेट्स् लुक् एट् द वर्ड्स देमसेल्व्स सो अत्र अस्ति मित्र शब्दस्य मित्रं मित्रे मित्राणि ज्ञानं so jnana will become jnanam jnane jnanani okay anna food. Just one word of that, annam, anne, annani. Uttam, lot of nanna. Astu. And then moving on to the ikaranta. Tatra kim bhavati? So, ikarasya varieties santi. Like we've seen, that even if it's a vowel, it will not have a single form, but it will have many. So, ikarasya vari and shuchi. Kim bhavati? Vari stays exactly the same. Vari, shuchi. But just taking you back to the Panini sutras there, we see that the suffix that gets added in the kartru form is the su. Okay, so vari, pratipadika vari plus su. But with all the rules that will follow, the sutras of Panini that will follow, we see that the final form is still vari. It doesn't mean that it is directly taken from the pratipadika. There would be other rules. The hardware processing would happen. The end result looks deceptively like the original, but it's not identical. Okay, that needs to be taken into consideration. So, vari, varini and varini. Okay, this is again a typical feature of the Napunsakalinga words, where in the dvitiya dvivachanam, the last ni gets lengthened, and then in the bahuvachanam, the middle sound, the middle vowel is lengthened and the last ni is shortened. Astu, that is a feature of the Napunsakalinga. Tari atra vari, varini and varini. Okay. Atra kim bhavati? Shuchi, guess? Shuchi, shuchini, shuchini. Uttamam. Tari atra adi, ityadi we say, and henceforth tari adi shabdasya is like vari and surabhi is like shuchi. Astu. So, that backslash would allow you to identify the corresponding word. Moving on, we have seen vari, shuchi similarity so far, anantaram bhedaha bhavati, there are differences later on. Parantu dadhi shabdasya bhinnam eva roopam asti tatra. Atra nasti but anantaram agacchati. Tari atra kim bhavati? So, dadhi kim bhavati dvivachane? Dadhini and dadhini. Uttamam. So, you can even play with your hand like that, so dadhini, dadhini. So, you can teach your body the language, the word form api. Okay. Next, asthi kim bhavati? Asthini. So, asthi, asthini and asthini. Similarly, akshi. Asthi bone asti. Asti means the bone and akshi the eye. Astu. Moving on, madhu and guru. Here, the guru shabda is not like the pullinga guru shabda. Atra guru means weight. It's like an adjective, and it's an adjective for a Napunsakalinga word. Astu. So, atra you have madhu. There's a backslash because it would imply that there are slight differences. Tari madhu, madhuni and madhuni. Atra kim bhavati? Guru, guruni and guruni. Uttamam. Sanu. So, sanu is a table land, or it's a plateau, okay, or a plateau that they say, the land that is flattened out after a while. So, sanu and laghu. So, sanu kim bhavati? sanuni and sanuni. Uttamam. And laghu api. Dhatra, rikaranta shabdanam kim bhavati? What happens? Dhatra, dhatrani and dhatrani. Uttamam. Dhatra, dhatra, dhatrani and dhatrani. Uttamam. Next kim asti? Naman. Naman shabda se kim bhavati? So when we say bhavatah nama kim, akaranta nasti, and a very typical mistake is bhavatah namaha kim. Doshaha asti. Karanam nama shabda napunsakalinga shabda asti. Astu ataha bhavatah nama kim. Very consciously you have to hold your breath. So Sanskrit really is a language that regulates breathing in an incredible manner, and it's that ability to hold the breath, to know exactly how much breath to exercise, that makes this language such a fantastic pranayama. Okay, because the mind has to be applied there, and the mind has to control the breath that is being expressed in the sound. You see, something as automatic as breathing is also brought under a certain samskara when one is speaking Sanskrit. Tari nama, namani, or namni and namani. Astu spashtam. Similar word is saman, like the samagana of the samaveda. Okay, so samani or samni and samani. Uttamam. Bhavat takara antasya kim bhavati? Bhavat, the same that becomes bhavan and bhavati. Pullinge strilinge chatra kim bhavati? Bhavat, bhavati, bhavanti. Jagat, jagat, jagati, jaganti. Uttamam. And mahat. Astu spashtam asti. Moving on to the dvitiya vibhakti, or the second case, the karma karakam, object to, and corresponding to the accusative case. Kim bhavati atra? So kutra and kim. Kim specific, kutra generic prashna asti. Samanya prashna bhavati. Tat kutra eti. Okay, so tat kutra eti, or tat kim nagaram eti. Which town does that go? That. So that could be tat lokayanam bus, tat yanam car, tat vimanam plane. So you can put in whatever. Okay, so tat kutra eti, because atra it's in the destination. Astu, sorry, tat etat nagaram eti. Next, tat ke eti, tat ete nagare eti. Uttamam. Your turn now. Tat kani eti. Uttaram. Tat etani nagarani eti. Uttamam. Astu. And you can again play around, singular subject, multiple objects, and I'll let you do that. But for now, let's move on to the Yushmat Padam. So it is, what happens here? Twam, twa, yuvam, va, yushman, vaha. So there it would be like kam, for example, tat, kim vadati, to whom is he speaking, and you don't know whether it's male, female, but you can just leave it as the word mitram. The mind has to fill in the correct words there. Okay, so tat twam mitram eti. So that is going to you friends. Okay, to you friend. And then similarly, so yuvam, vam, yushman, vaha. Next, mam, ma, avam, now, asmanaha in the, for the asmat padam, sarvanama padam. And then let's move on to the words themselves. Kim bhavati? Nagaram, nagare, nagarani. Udyanam, udyanam becomes udyanam, udyane, udyanani. Uttamam, and you can do the rest of them. Next, mitra kim bhavati? Mitram, mitre, mitrani. Now the real good news with the Napunsakalinga is that Prathama Vibhakti and Dvitiya Vibhakti sarvada samanam eva bhavati, and sambodhanam api samanam bhavati. So the first case, the second case, and the eighth case are all the same. Labhas and the rest are like pullinga. So you pretty much don't need to pay any, you don't need to occupy a lot of your memory space with trying to remember all the forms of the Napunsakalinga words. You just need to remember the similarity with the pullinga, and remember that the first two are similar, and that is unique. Okay, that's specific to the Napunsakalinga. Tari atra kim bhavati? So vari, shuchi, just as we've seen in the previous case. So I'm not going over it again, but possibly just one exercise for you just off this chart here. So if you wanted to say that which honeys eats. So that is tat, which kani, honeys, you look at madhu and madhuni, atra, and the word is khadati. So tat kani madhuni, no, madhuni khadati. Astu. So you have to be very careful there. And the answer would be, so that eats those two honeys. So tat te madhuni khadati. So tat te, two of them, madhuni khadati. Astu spashtam asti. The question was in the bahuvachanam, so it was madhuni. In the dvivachanam, it becomes madhuni. Spashtam? Let's move on. So let's do the abhyasa together now. Astu uttarasya anuvadam kurvantu. Ke mitre kutah itaha. So typically asmakam yatha bhavati ke ityukte atra dual asti prathama vibhakti. So prathama vibhakti, we start with the vibhakti. Okay, so prathama vibhakti and it is the dual, and prathama vibhakti dual. Kutra itaha. So where are those two going? Uttaram. These two intelligent friends go to those two gardens. So now you press the pause button and try to answer it yourself, and then come back to see whether you've got it right. Astu. But in the interest of time, I will continue atra. So these two intelligent friends go to those two gardens. So atra these two intelligent friends kim bhavati. So you would have to club that whole thing together, and those two gardens will have to get clubbed together. These two intelligent friends kim bhavati, instead of doing it independently. So these two independent is the prathama vibhakti and in the dual, and this is dvitiya vibhakti and in the dual. Atra kim bhavati, these two. These kim bhavati, ete. Intelligent, subuddhi is the word. So subuddhi, and then the ni was long. So subuddhini. Mitram is the word. So mitre, uttavam. Go to those two gardens. Those two bhavati te. Two gardens. Gardens kim bhavati? Udyanam is the word. So udyane. And I could have put the verb go itaha here, or I can even choose to put it at the end. So it can even come in here. Astu. Tari te subuddhini mitre te udyane itaha uttamam. And here there is a bit of a logical thing. That's how you know that because the prathama and dvitiya vibhakti are identical, you have to understand the context in this particular case. Agami vakyam pashyama, tatra kim asti? Vakyasya bahuvachanam kritva yathochitam prashnam karotu. Tari yuvam ushna jalam pitva. So it's not ushna jalam, and which was a thing that an error in my mind. So it is ushna jalam pitva phalam madhu cha khaditva bhojanam akurutam. Okay. So yuvam ushna jalam. So let's just do all of them are in the dvitiya here. So yuvam will become yuyam because of the u that follows, it becomes a mahalant. Okay. Ushna jalani. Okay. I'll just do the last part of it. So jalani pitva phalani madhuni cha khaditva bhojanani akuruta. Akuru, it has to match with the subject, which is bahuvachanam. Ataha kim bhavati? Smaranti? Akuruta. Uttamam. Astu. And asya prashnaha kaha bhavishyati? What question will you ask? Because the answer is yuyam, then the answer, because the answer has yuyam in it, therefore the question will have to either be which waters do we drink, and which after drinking which waters and eating which foods do we eat our final meal. Iti prashnaha asti. So atra bhavishyati vayam kani pitva kani kani cha khaditva bhojanani. We can keep that. Bhojanani akurma. Astu, spashtamasti. So let's move on. In the third table, in the second table here, which has the Tritiya and Chaturthi Vibhakti, what happens? So Tritiya Vibhakti, third case, Karana Karanakam, instrument with, by, through as prepositions, and it is the instrumental case. Atra prashnam prichamaha militva tat katham or kena mitrena saha or vina avidyata. Did he stay there? Etadasti anadyatana bhutakalaha. Okay, lang lakaraha. Tari uttaram tat tena mitrena saha or vina avidyata. Uttamam. Dvitiya prashnaha tat kabhyam saha kabhyam mitrabhyam saha avidyata. Uttaram tat tabhyam mitrabhyam saha or vina avidyata. Finally, tat kahi mitrahi saha vina avidyata. Uttaram tat tahi mitrahi saha vina avidyata. Uttamam. And now let's look at the word forms of the pronouns. So you have yushmat, which is tvaya yuvabhyam yushmabhihi, and asmat maya asma avabhyam and asmabhihi. Spashtamasti. Moving on to the words themselves. Kim bhavati atra? Mitrena mitrabhyam mitraih dhanam dhanena dhanabhyam dhanaih. So dhanena vina jivanam kashtam asti. Uttamam. But dhanena ati dhanena saha api jivanam sahajam na bhavati. So one has to find that relationship with wealth. And I'd just like to add that the mother from the ashram sa vadati yat dhanam api eka shaktihi asti. Tari tas shaktehi katham upayogam kurma. It's not about little or more. It is how do we handle the money? With which bhavaha do we add? How do we apply dharma in the usage of artha, which is a very important purushartha itself when we talk of the 4 purusharthas of human life, which are dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So dharma is the right way of utilizing things for the best possible optimization of its resources. The artha is wealth, which was completely legitimate in life and required to exist. Kama was desires, etc., and that also had to be within the framework of dharma. And finally, moksha, the final purushartha, but moksha not in the sense that we are usually accustomed to, in the narrow sense of just liberation, leave everything and go. There's a lot of detailed thinking that needs to happen, and the way I understand moksha is that moksha is about having that freedom from the thing itself. It's not about whether one has it or doesn't have it, but that freedom of attitude with what one will do with it, whether it's less or more. That is what is the real quality of moksha. And the same with the dhana element api. As dhana and kama, both of them, when that is lived on the basis of dharma and with complete abandon, without its presence or absence affecting us, that is the swabhava of moksha or the mukta purusha. Astu, coming back to our topic here itself, so we've got the verb vidyate in the lang lakara, which is avidyata, avidyetam, avidyanta, avidyathaha, avidyetham, avidyadhvam, avidye, avidye, avidyavahi and avidyamahi. Kriyati pattil ringe kim bhavati? Avetsyata, avetsyetam, avetsyanta ityadi. Next, let's come down to the words themselves. Atra kim bhavati? Atra vari shabdasya kim bhavati? Varina, shuchina, madhuna, guruna. All of them get the same format. So ikara bhavatu va ukara bhavatu. We see that all of them get the na at the end. And varibhyam, shuchibhyam, madhubhyam, gurubhyam. And then finally bhihi. So varibhihi, shuchibhihi, madhubhihi, gurubhihi. Astu. And you've got examples with sudhi. So let me just ask you, sudhi kim bhavishyati? Sudhina, sudhibhyam, sudhibhihi. Uttamam. Moving on. Dadhi shabdasya kinchit bhedah bhavati karanam tatra it becomes dadhi, becomes dadhna. Astu. Next, dadhibhyam. So although it's dadhna, it doesn't become dadhibhyam. It becomes, although it's dadhna, it becomes dadhibhyam, as we can see here. And then dadibhyaha. Sakthi and akshi. So sakthi, sakthina, sakthna. So the ikara goes, the last letter combines with the nakara, so sakthna. And saktibhyam, saktibhyam, saktibhyaha. Akshi, uttamam. Dhatrina or dhatra becomes dhatribhyam, dhatribhihi. Vaktra, vaktrina, vaktra, vaktribhyam and vaktribhi. We see that the vaktra form is coming from the pullinga rupam tatra. And we have datru also. Now, naman becomes namna, namabhyam and namabhi. Similarly with heman. Anantaram kim bhavati? Bhavata, bhavadbhyam, bhavadbhihi. Yatha atra pullinge rupani bhavanti tathaiva atrapi bhavati. Moving on to the fourth case, atra we have chaturthi vibhakti, or the fourth case, sampradana karakam. It goes on to the receiver, and the prepositions associated with it are for the sense of the purpose, give to. So that give is one verb that definitely takes the saptami, the chaturthi vibhakti. So we've got the dative case. Atra kim asti? Let's look at the verbs once. Avadat, avadatam, avadan, avadaha, avadatam, avadata, avadam, avadava and avadama. Da dhatoh kim bhavati? Adadat, adattam, adaduhu, adadaha, adattam, adatta, adadam, adadva and adadma. Kripaya uchchahi vadatu, because da dhatu sahajam nasti. Uchchahi kathanena eva karnayoho tasya shravana samskaraha, shuddha shravana samskaraha bhavishyati. Tena sambhashana kale यदि दोषः भवति तदा शरीरमेव वदति न न न न दोषः अस्ति इति. Okay, so please say it aloud, because then you teach your body the correct sounds of the grammar. And then kriyati pattil ringe avadishyat and adasyat. Getting back to the table itself, tat kimartham or kasmai adadat uttaram, tat tasmai mitraya adadat uttamam. Moving on, tat kabhyam mitrabhyam adadat, tat tabhyam mitrabhyam adadat. Finally, tat kebhyah mitrebhyah adadat uttaram, tat tebhyah mitrebhyah adadat. Astu spashtam. Similarly for the yushmat, it becomes tubhyam or te, yuvabhyam or vam, yushmabhyam or vaha, and for asmat bhavati mahyam or me, avabhyam now and asmabhyam or naha. Let's look at the word forms. Mitraya, mitrabhyam, mitrebhyah, sharira, shariraya, sharirabhyam, sharirebhyah, and kutira. I'll let you do it yourself. Vari shabdasya varine, shuchi, shuchine. But it also has shuchaye, like the word muni in the pullinga. Muni gets muni, muni, munina, munaye. It doesn't become munane. So shuchi has both these options. Dadhi becomes dadhne. And then you have varibhyam and varibhyah, same for the others. And then you've got ityadi, etc. That word is like vari. And then surabhi like shuchi and akshi like dadhi. Next, madhu. Kim bhavati? Madhu and guru. Tatra madhune, gurune or gurave. Gurave is identical to the pullinga rupa, if you remember. And then madhubhyam and gurubhyam and madhubhyah, gurubhyah. Spashtam. Words that are similar are jatru and it is laghu. Okay, so jatru is an instrument and laghu means small or light. It's an adjective there. And then we've got dhatr. Dhatr becomes dhatrine or dhatre, like pitre. Dhatr shabda dhatre also there. And then you've got dhatribhyam, dhatribhyah. Gantr becomes gantrine, gantre, gantribhyam, gantribhyah uttamam. Vaktr similarly. Naman kim bhavati? Namne, namabhyam, namabhyah. Loman similar. Finally, bhavate, bhavadbhyam and bhavadbhyah. You have ichat and buddhimat, that will take on the same form. Let's just do the buddhimat once. So buddhimate, buddhimadbhyam, buddhimadbhyah. Uttamam. So let's move on. Abhyasam kurma. Atra prashna uttarasya anuvadam kritva bahuvachanam kurvantu. Saha katham kena kena sahacha tatra avrajata. Saha is the prathama vibhakti singular, ke katham third. So all of this, the moment you see saha, you know it is a tritiya. So tritiya vibhakti singular, tatra avrajata. Okay, so this is atmanepadi. Atmanepadi, third person singular. Just to elaborate on that once more. So he went there by that plane along with this intelligent speaker. He went. This is the singular, this is the ekavachanam, prathama vibhakti ekavachanam. And then he went there by that plane. Okay, so by that plane and along with this intelligent speaker. Kim bhavati atra? Tritiya vibhakti ekavachanam and tritiya vibhakti ekavachanam. Tari atra bahuvachanam prathamam, so saha. Atra first uttarasya anuvadam kritva, so saha went there, vrajata tatra by that plane, so tena vimanena, along with this intelligent speaker. So intelligent could also be sumati or subuddhi. So it will be subuddhi would be this. First let's do the this. Etena subuddhi will become, in case of doubt you go back, subuddhina, subuddhina. So subuddhi and not na but na. Vaktr, just to check it out again for you, vaktrna, so vaktrna or vaktra, saha, along. Okay, so saha avrajata tatra tena vimanena etena subuddhina vaktrna or vaktra saha. Uttamam. You can put the verb at the end. And now bahuvachanam avashakam asti. Tari te avrajanta so avrajanta tatra tena will become tahi uttamam, vimanahi uttamam, etahi uttamam, subuddhi bhihi uttamam, subuddhi bhihi and vaktr bhihi, that's the same thing there, vaktr bhihi saha. It's sometimes easier to put the verb at the end. Tari te tatra tahi vimanahi etahi subuddhi bhihi vaktr bhihi saha avrajanta. Uttama. Moving on to the next one, which is vakyam purayitva dvivachane karotu. Te kasmai buddhimat. If you get that in ekavachanam, dhanam da. Okay, so this is not needed there. So te kasmai buddhimata or buddhimate, because of the verb da that is there. So te kasmai buddhimate dhanam adaduhu. Okay, let's look at that one. Adaduhu. Spashta. Tari te kasmai buddhimate dhanam adaduhu. Uttaram. Atra dvivachanam karanyam asti. Tari dvivachane kim bhavati? Now there is one tricky thing here. Because it is te, it can be various things in the verbs. So that's something that you have to take into consideration, because the te doesn't necessarily tell us whether it is a singular bahuvachanam, it's a pullinga bahuvachanam or a dvivachanam of a strilinga or napunsakalinga. So in case this, so you have to do a lot of this if then, clarity avashakam asti. So you say if, so let's say this is pullinga bahuvachanam. Okay, pullinga bahuvachanam. Then the verb will be adadaduhu. Astu. But if it is strilinga, sorry, I'll just do that again. If it is strilinga, dvivachanam or napunsakalinga, dvivachanam, it will be adattam. Okay, and you can always double check it. You see adattam. So now it becomes te if it's pullinga, kasmai buddhimate dhanam adaduhu. But if it is a strilinga and a napunsakalinga dvivachanam, it becomes te kasmai buddhimate dhanam adattam. Spashtata avashyaki asti. And now vakyam puritva dvivachane karotu. So let's make this te into a dvivachanam of the napunsakalinga tatra. Tari uttaram atra dvivachanam eva bhavishyati. Te kabhyam buddhi madbhyam buddhimadbhyam dhane dvivachanam eva kurma. Two different kinds of monies. Astu dhane and then adattam. Astu spashtam asti. So etat abhavat. I hope there are complications, but it just implies greater degree of clarity in what is it that you are trying to convey as a speaker. So let's look at the next table, which is the Panchami Vibhakti, the fifth case, the Apadana Karakam. It's the point of separation and it is associated with the preposition from and corresponding to the ablative case. So atra kim bhavati pashyama. Tat kutaha general prashnaha, kasmat specific, mitrat swikuryat. We'll stick to the verb swikuryat and atra vidhilingam pashyama. Atru astu swikuryat. So it comes from swikri, dukrin, karane and tanadi that we've already been looking at. Tari atra tat kasmat mitrat swikuryat. Uttaram tat tasmat mitrat swikuryat. Next tat kabhyam mitrabhyam swikuryat. Tat tabhyam mitrabhyam swikuryat. Uttamam. Finally tat kebhyah mitrebhyah swikuryat. Tat tebhyah mitrebhyah swikuryat. Now as I was saying it, I also realized that when I am saying tat, here the tat is the subject. Okay, so it would have to be tat jnanam. Okay, that tat jnanam swikuryat. In that case, tat jnanam will be the object case. So no. So it would be tat mitram, let's say, or tat vakta, that speaker. So tat vaktr in the napunsakalinga. So tat vaktr, that speaker, kasmat mitrat jnanam swikuryat, from which friend does he take the knowledge? What I had said earlier on was tat jnanam kasmat swikuryat. In that case, the tat jnanam is the karma karakam, it is the second vibhakti. So just be very conscious of who the subject is, what the object is, etc. in your sentences. Astu. Let's look at the yushmat and asmat rupas. So we've got twat yuvabhyam yushmat, mat avabhyam asmat. Rupani kani bhavanti atra? Mitrat mitrabhyam mitrebhyah, netrat netrabhyam netrebhyah and patra. Next, vari sabda, you see that vari and ikara ukara samana rupani bhavanti atra. Ataha varinaha shuchinaha shuchehe, like kavehe pullinge, dadhnaha madhunaha gurunaha or guroho, like the guru in the pullinga. And then each of them, so varibhyam, shuchibhyam, dadhibhyam, madhubhyam, gurubhyam. And similarly, varibhyah, etc. tatra bhavati. Now, I'd like you to try and get the word patu and tell me the forms. Kim bhavati? So, patu is like guru in this case. Ataha patu means one who is skillful. So, patu, patunaha and then patoho. Patubhyam, patubhyah, uttamam. Next, dhatrinaha. Dhatru kim bhavati? Dhatrinaha or dhatuhu, like pituhu or dhatuhu in the pullinga shabda. Dhatribhyam, dhatribhyah. Vaktra वक्तृणः वक्तुः और वक्तृभ्यां वक्तृभ्यः उत्तमं गन्त्र up to you to do. नामन् किं भवति नाम्नः नामभ्यां नामभ्यः उत्तमं प्रेमन् although it is the word prema and it sounds like an akaranta किन्तु नास्ति तथैव शब्द भस्मन् अकारान्त नास्ति नकारान्त अस्ति अतः प्रेम शब्दस्य किं रूपं भवति अथवा कानि रूपाणि भवन्ति तर्हि यु गो टु प्रेम्णः सः प्रेम्णः पुस्तकम् अददात् so it gave with love or from love. Okay, that's a bit confusing. Let's skip that. Okay, so I'll do this again. Namnah, namabhyam and namabhyah. Similarly, it is for preman and bhasman. So preman, although preman looks like prema is an akaranta shabda, looks like an akaranta shabda, but normally it is not an akara. Just like the word bhasman is a nakaranta, not an akaranta. Sorry, prema shabdasya rupani kurvantu premnah, प्रेमभ्याम एंड प्रेमभ्यः उत्तमं भवत् शब्दस्य किं भवति भवतः भवद्भ्यां भवद्भ्यः उत्तमं गतवत् गतवतः गतवद्भ्यां गतवतः गतवद्भ्यः उत्तमं दृष्टवत् ओके वन हूज गॉट सीइंग इन दैट नेक्स्ट विधिलिंग आत्मनेपदी रूपाणि वदामः विधिलिंग तत्र सो विद्येत् विद्येयातां विद्येरन् विद्येथाः विद्येयाथां विद्येत् ध्वम विद्येय विद्येवहि एंड विद्येमहि उत्तमं स्वीकुर्यात् इति शब्दस्य रूपाणि इति धातोः रूपाणि स्वीकुर्यात् स्वीकुर्यातां स्वीकुर्युः स्वीकुर्याः स्वीकुर्यातं स्वीकुर्यात् स्वीकुर्यां स्वीकुर्याव एंड स्वीकुर्याम उत्तमं वदेत् वदेत् वदेतां वदेयुः by now you should have it rattling out by heart वदेत् वदेतां वदेयुः वदेः वदेतं वदेत वदेयं वदेव एंड वदेम उत्तमम् अत्र वयम् इदानीं षष्ठी विभक्ति अथवा द सिक्स्थ केस संबंध पोजेशन मीनिंग पोजेशन रिलेशन ऑफ और बिलोंग and then it corresponds to the genitive case. So let's look at the forms of this. So we've got tat kasya or kasya samanam mitrasya bhasham vadet. Which friend's language should you say? अथवा tat vaktr, that speaker. Kasya mitrasya bhasham vadet. Which friend's language should he speak? Should napunsakalinga. It is tricky here. So tat vaktr tasya mitrasya bhasham vadet. Next, kayoho mitrayoho bhasham vadet. Tayoho mitrayoho bhasham vadet. Uttamam. Next, plural. Kesham mitranam bhasham vadet. Tesham mitranam bhasham vadet. Uttamam. Let's look at the sarvanama padani. So tasya tayoho tesham, tava or te for yushmat, yuvayoho vam and yushmakam vaha, and for asmat mama me ahavayoho nau and asmakam or naha. Atra mukhya shabdanam rupani pashyama. Mitrasya mitrayoho mitranam kavyam kavyasya kavyayoho kavyanam. So kavyasya chandah kaha asti. So chandah also is a chandas ending shabda. It's a napunsakalinga shabda there. So mitrasya mitrayoho mitranam and kavyam also we've seen now. And karya is in the same format. Vari and shuchi. So vari naha, shuchi naha and shuchehe like kavehe. In the dvivachanam it is vari noho. So shuchi noho similarly. But it also becomes shuchyoho like kavyoho. Next, vari nam, it will become a na in that case, and shuchi nam. Sumati is like vari, surabhi is like shuchi. Astu. Moving on, dadhi shabdasya rupani kinchit bhinnani bhavanti. Little different there. So dadnaha, dadnoho, dadnam. Akshi, akshnaha, akshnoho, akshnam. Uttamam. Sakthi means the thigh. Astu, just for general knowledge of the meaning. Next, ukarantasya kim bhavati? Madhunaha, gurunaha or guroho like the ukaranta pullinga, and madhunoho and atra bhavishyati gurunoho and gurvoho. Astu. So for the shashti and the saptami, the dvivachanam is the same. Astu. So we have madhu, madhunoho and madhunam, gurunaha or guroho like pullinga, gurunoho and guruvoho pullingavat, and gurunam, and vastu is like madhu and patu is like guru. Rikaranta shabdanam kim bhavati? Dhatrinaha or dhatuhu like the pullinga dhatuhu, and then dhatrinoho or dhatroho pullingavat bhavati atra, and dhatrinam. Next gantra, trinoha, gantrinaha, gantuhu, gantrinoho, gantroho and gantrinam. Uttamam kartra samanam rupam bhavati. Naman shabdasya kim bhavati? Namnaha like the panchami, namnoho and namnam. Vyoman, vyomnaha, vyomnoho, vyomnam. So just a little bit again of the similarities and differences. So panchami and shashti, the ekavachanam are similar. For the non-akaranta, beyond akaranta, it gets the similar forms as you can observe here. For the dvivachanam, the shashti and saptami are the same. Okay, we will see that in the next table. Atra kim bhavati? Namnam. So vyoman kim bhavati? Vyomnaha, vyomnoho and vyomnam. Uttamam. Bhavat, bhavataha, bhavatoho, bhavatam. Gatavat, gatavataha, gatavato, gatavatam. And atra, we will just look at vadet, we will look at the forms of the verbs. So swikuryat, swikuryatam, swikuryuhu, swikuryaha, swikuryatam, swikuryata, swikuryam, swikuryava and swikuryama. Vadet dhatoh kim bhavati? Vadet, vadetam, vadeyuhu, vadehe, vadetam, vadeta, vadeyam, vadeva and vadema. Abhyasam kurma. Prashnottarayoho sanskrite anuvadam likhantu. Those things came from which give us houses. Sorry, those things atra bhavishyati. Those things will be the prathama vibhakti plural, from which, from and house we will put together. So this will be the fifth plural, which gives sixth plural. Astu. Atra kim bhavati? Those things. Tani vastuni came, agachan, from houses. So, and because there is the verb here which, okay, not verb here, you have got the question which, tari, before that you have grihebhyah, which gives us kesham da trinam. Okay, so tani vastuni kebhyah. Kebhyah can be a question, because from which, or you can even leave it, you do not need to put it in there, because we are putting it grihebhyah, kesham datrinam grihebhyah. So the which has been taken care of there itself. Astu. So let us get back to the question, to the sentence. So tani vastuni agachan grihebhyah, kesham datrinam grihebhyah can come at the end here, and agachan can go all the way at the end. Let us ask that question in a more simple manner. So tani vastuni kesham datrinam grihebhyah agachan. Okay, tatra asti. Okay, now let us move on to the answer. Those three things came from these two well-meanings givers' houses. So pause, because as you can see it is not so straightforward and it needs a little bit of thinking. Tari, just pause it here and try and do it yourself first. So those three things, okay, Tari, that is the first and plural, came from houses. That still remains fifth plural. These two well-meaning givers, which is here it would be the shashti and plural, shashti and the dual. Okay, so let us see what happens here. These three things, okay, tari etani 3, त्रीणि उत्तमं, त्रीणि वस्तूनि, so let's just go back. वस्तूनि आगच्छन् from these two, from houses, so grihebhyah, grihebhyah. Okay, so that's a grihebhyah. These two well meaning givers. So these, let's do the these first. A yoho, two of them, right? So it will be etayoho, well meaning, sumati. So sumati sumatayoho. Let's have a look at it to be absolutely sure. So sumati will be like this, so it will be sumatinoho. Sumatinoho, because we are talking of it in the Napunsakalinga. And da, so let's go back there and see what happens. Datra becomes datrinoho or datroho. Datrinoho or datroho. Okay, let's do the whole sentence. So etani trini vastuni, number 1. Etayo sumatinoho datrinoho 2, grihebhyah 3, agachan 4. Okay, then it becomes an easily understood sentence. But you see, you can literally reconstruct it with the words that you have on top and then change the order there. Astu, tarhi agre gachhama. Let's look at the last table now. So we've got the Saptami Vibhakti or the 7th case, the Adhikarana Karakam corresponding to location, prepositions in or on, and the locative case. And here I'll just remind you that because the verb form that we're looking at is the ajna or the lot, it's the imperative, do this. Therefore, the question will have to be in the vidhiling or in the bhavishyakala. So we'll just do the ajna forms once. So vidyatam, vidyetam, vidyantam, vidyaswa, vidyetham, vidyadhvam, vidye, vidyavahai and vidyamahai. And look at the parasmaipadi, kim bhavati? Vadatu, vadatam, vadantu, vada, vadatam, vadata, vadani, vadava and vadama. Astu. Now let's apply, let's do a practice here. Tat kutra or kada kasmin mitre vidyeta. Okay, so the question is tat guna, tat jnanam, that knowledge. Tat jnanam kasmin mitre vidyeta. Tat jnanam, tat Sanskrita jnanam. Astu, let's do it with Sanskrita jnanam. Tat Sanskrita jnanam tasmin mitre vidyatam, should have knowledge. Next, tat Sanskrita jnanam kayoho mitrayoho vidyatam. Tat Sanskrita jnanam tayoho mitrayoho vidyatam. Uttamam. And I'll do the last one, the question in the future. Tat Sanskrita jnanam keshu mitreshu vidyatam vetsyate. Okay, that was the bhavishyakala. So I'll repeat that once more. Tat Sanskrita jnanam keshu mitreshu vetsyate. Tat Sanskrita jnanam teshu mitreshu vidyatam. Let it be there. Astu. Now let's look at the sarvanama padani. Tari yushmat kim bhavati? Tvai yuvayoho yushmasu mai avayoho asmasu. Kim bhavati atra? Mitre mitrayoho mitreshu gagana gagane gaganayoho gaganeshu. Kshetra meaning field, gagana meaning the sky. And I'll let you do it with kshetra. Vari shabda se kim bhavati? So varini, shuchini or shuchau. Okay, like a vow. And varinoho, atrapi varinoho and shuchyoho in the dvivachanam. And वारिषु and शुचिषु. अस्तु. नेक्स्ट दधि शब्दस्य भिन्नं भवति. दध्नि और दधनि and अत्र दध्नोः दधिषु अस्ति बोन्. Yes, उत्तमम्. and सक्ति तथाई. मधु शब्दस्य किं भवति? मधु and गुरु. मधुनि 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 मधुनोः मधुषु. गुरु शब्दस्य गुरुणि और गुरौ, just like the pullinga. And then gurunoh or gurvoh, and finally gurushu. Astu. Janu, the ni. So very interesting that quite a few body parts are in the Napunsakalinga. Tari janu kim bhavati? Januni, janunoh, janushu. Uttamam. Daru is a tree. Like you've got the Devadaru vrikshaha asti tatra. Okay. Now dhatrini. Dhatri shabdasya kim bhavati? Dhatrini, dhatari, dhatrinoh, dhatroh, and dhatrishu. Astu. And kartru kim bhavati? Tari kartroh, kartrishu. Uttamam. And gantr samanam tatra bhavati. Naman, namni, namani. And atrapi, just that this is an equivalent there, it's not an alternative. So namani, namani, namnoho, and namsu. Dhaman, dhamani, dhamni, dhamani. You see, even that akara makes a difference. Okay, so dhamni, dhamani, and dhamnoho, dhamasu. Astu. Brahman, the important word. Brahmani, brahmani, and brahmano, brahmasu. Uttamam. Bhavat shabdasya kim bhavati? Bhavati, bhavatoho, bhavatsu. Jagat, jagati, jagatoho, jagatsu. Jagati sarve api ekada sanskritam vadishyanti iti bhagavatah samipam hardika prarthana asti. Astu. Bhavantah api sambhashanam samyak kurvanti chet shigrameva tatha bhavati iti mama atmavishwasah asti. Astu. Agre gachhama tari tatra. Okay, let's look at the 8th case of the sambodhanam. To address someone, or it's the vocative. So here the subjects will correspond with the sambodhita, the people you're calling out to, that will correspond with the verb. So he mitra vadatu, he mitre vadatam, he mitrani vadantu. So he kamala, he kamale, he kamalani. Amrita samanamasti. Uttamam. He vari. Vari shabdasya kim bhavati? He vare or he vari. He shuche, he shuchi. हे दधे, हे दधि. हे वारिणी, शुचि or dadhini. Varini, shuchini, dadhini. Like the prathama vibhakti. Adi, subuddhi, akshi will take similar forms. What happens to madhu? Madho, he madhu. Guru, he guru. Guruni, madhuni, guruni. Madhuni, guruni. Ambu and ashu will take on the similar forms. Next, dhatra kim bhavati? He dhatah. He dhatra, he dhatrani, he dhatrani. Similarly, gantra, he gantah, he gantra, he gantrani, he gantrani. Uttamam. And with vaktra, you do the practice. And then naman kim bhavati? He nama, he naman, he namani, he namni, and finally, he namani. Yatha karman and janman. So janma. हे जन्मानि तत्र भवति. Like कर्मन् किं भविष्यति? हे कर्म, हे कर्मन्, हे कर्मणि, 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 and कर्माणि. अस्तु. Last, भवत् शब्दस्य हे भवत्, हे भवति, हे भवन्ति. भास्वत्, the fully shining one. Bhaswat, bhaswati, bhaswanti. Bhagavat. But here the Bhagavat is in the Napunsaka. It's not like Bhagavan. Just remember that difference there. Astu. So we've already looked at the verb forms there. Now let's do some abhyasa. Sanskrite anuvadam kritva bahuvachane kurvantu. Oh friend, oh soft speaker. And then in whose glory, Dhaman, should we sing our song? So, oh friend, hey. So that, hey. Mitra. Oh, soft speaker. So the word is mridu. So what does the mridu become? Just have a look at it. So mridu becomes he mrido or he mridu. Astu. So he mrido or mridu. Okay, he mridu or he mridu. And then vaktr kim bhavati? Vaktaha or vaktr. So vaktah or vaktr. In whose glory. So that's the saptami there. Kim bhavati? In whose glory? So kasya and then glory, in the glory, dhaman atrasti, dhamni or dhamani. So kasya dhamni or dhamani asmakam, our, that's a shashti there, plural, asmakam geetam, oh, that will have to be changed to a dot, geetam gayama. Okay, kasya, in that whom should we sing? Gayamaha. So you can say Gayamaha in the sense of are we singing? In whose glory are we singing? Astu, should we sing here? But that makes it more of a load. So what we can actually leave it as Gayama. Do we sing? Okay, sing. Tari atra, I think it would be better than Gayam also, just thinking of the tense and the meaning that it is. So I think the better thing is it would be Gayema. Should we sing? This seems like the best fit there. Astu. And idanim tasya bahuvachanam kurma. So he mitrani, he, you remember it is mriduni and vaktrani kesham, glories, kesham. And then what happens to dhaman? Let's look at dhaman. Saptami kim bhavati? Dhaman, dhamasu. So dhamasu asmakam geetani. Geetani here is which vibhakti? Dvitiya vibhakti ekavachanam. So singular. So this is bahuvachanam. So geetani gayema. This can remain the same. Astu. Tari he mitrani, he mriduni, he mriduni vaktrani, kesham dhamasu asmakam geetani gayema. Astu. Spashtam asti etat. Chalatu. Agre gachhama. So we've been looking at the different words, and now here are the words that are there. All the different endings that we've not been able to touch upon, they are given to you in this table. So let's look at the more elaborate table that we have, like we had in the other cases. So here we've got all the other words that are there, and some of them are not so common. What we found when trying to make these tables is that there are differences in opinion sometimes in the different presentations of these words and their associations with the different lingers. But ekam tu sunishchitam asti yat atra yatha, all these words in blue are the pulling equivalents. Ityukte, like I have written here, note well, that for the third and seventh case, all these words that are there in blue would, all these words that are marked associated with a word in the blue box are all in the pullinga form beyond the third to the seventh vibhaktis. Astu, tad ekam jnatavyam asti. Similarly, I'd also like you to know that here, for example, havish, havis has got havis and havish. So a few words like that all are dual ending kind of words there. So atra, you can take your time to look at this more carefully, because it's just familiarizing yourself with the different forms of the word, the different endings of the words. Take your time and pause and just look at it, just for the study of the variety of possibilities. But if you know the patterns, sahajam eva tat bhavati. Agre gachhama. So dear friends, welcome again to the Sambhashanam. Whatever we've studied in the course is brought to you in this manner. Please join along with us. Namaste Piyusha, sarvam kushalam asti kim?
Am Arye, Bhagavatah kripaya sarvam kushalam. Mama mahan santosha api asti. Yataha adya mama mahat vaktri mitram agacchati.
Tat mitram tvam Vangadeshasya vishesham mishtidadhi athva mishtidoi खादितुं नेष्यसि किम्?
सत्यं। तस्मै बुद्धिमते मित्राय मम लघुना यानेन उद्यानं नीत्वा विशेषमधुना तत् दधि दास्यामि इति चिन्तयामि।
उत्तमविचारः। गृहात् मातुः प्रेम्णः पूर्णं मिष्टिदधि अवश्यं तं भोजय। तस्य जीवने अद्वितीयः अनुभवः भविष्यति, यतः जगति अन्यत्र एषः अवसरः अल्पः एव मिलेत् इति। त्वं च तं वक्तुं शक्नोषि। हे सुबुद्धे वक्तः मित्र, भवतः मिष्टिदध्नः अविस्मरणीयम् अनुभवं स्वजनान् अवश्यं श्रावय इति।
आम् आम्, नूनं तत् कथयिष्यामि। शुभदिनम् अस्तु भवत्याः।
शुभदिनम् अस्तु तेति पीयूष।
प्रणामः।
Namaste. So let's look at the 13 forms of Satyam that are given in the Mahabharata in the Rajadharma section of the Shanti Parvaha. In that one, Shri Krishna tells Yudhishthira that yadi bhavan Rajya Dharma Vishe Jnatum Ichchati tari Bhishma Pitamahasya Samipam Gatva Tat Sarvam Patatu. Bhishma Pitamaha Tadanim Banashayyayam Asit. तथापि सः तं वदति सः एव तत्र उत्तमं वक्तुं शक्नोति तद्विषये। तर्हि युधिष्ठिरः गत्वा यदा पृच्छति, हे भीष्मपितामह, कृपया वदतु राजधर्मस्य लक्षणानि कानि सन्ति? लक्षणानि, what are the characteristics? तदा सत्यविषये सः एतत् श्लोकद्वयं वदति। सः वदति सत्यञ्च समता चैव दमश्चैव न संशयः अमात्सर्यं क्षमा चैव ह्रीस्तितीक्षानुसूयता त्यागो ध्यानमथार्यत्वं धृतिश्च सततम्। अत्र there is a अनुस्वार अपि अस्ति, सततं दया अहिंसा चैव राजेन्द्र सत्याकारास्त्रयोदश। एतदस्ति शब्दकल्पद्रुमे तस्य रेफरेन्स् मिलति। तत्र एकवारं सन्धिविच्छेदं कुर्मः, मिलित्वा प्रयत्नं कुर्मः। सत्यञ्च सत्यं च समता चैव, चैव इस् च एव, दमश्चैव दमः च एव, सन्धिद्वयमस्ति। न संशयः अमात्सर्यं क्षमा चैव च एव ह्रीस्तितीक्षा नसूयता। 3 words, ह्रीः तितीक्षा अनसूयता। त्यागो becomes त्यागः, ध्यानम् अथ आर्यत्वं। सरि, ध्यानं ध्यानम् अथ, once more, ध्यानम् अथ आर्यत्वं। धृतिः च सततं दया अहिंसा चैव च एव हे राजेन्द्र सत्याकाराः त्रयोदश। अस्तु, कानि के तत्र सन्ति आकाराः? Samata, equality. A king should be equal to all his subjects. Next, damaha, self-restraint. If there is no self-restraint, then again there will be tendencies for partiality and adverse feelings. Amatsaryam, absence of jealousy. But matsaryam has been very interestingly defined. This shades, what I would like you to appreciate or to enjoy is the slight shade, the psychological shades that are brought out in these words. So what is matsaryam? Matsaryam kim? Asahana parasampattihi. Parasampatti asahana. Others' wealth you cannot tolerate, asahana. And anya shubha dveshaha. So anya shubha dvesha. So shubha dvesha, others, anya shubha dvesha. So you don't want well for the others. Okay. These two are the meanings given to matsaryam. Next, kshama, forgiveness. Hrihi. Even forgiveness, as we saw last time with kshama, the more we carry these baggages, the more one's peace of mind is lost, and it creates these filters in looking at the world, which then allow us to, or cause a lot of distortions in our perceptions of the world. Hrihi, modesty. Titiksha, endurance. Anasuya, so this is a little different from a matsaryam, and let's see how. Absence of envy. So what is the definition of envy versus jealousy? Asuya is paragune dosharopanam. So when somebody is praising somebody else, they will say, no, 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 useless person, there's nothing good in that person. So not able to even tolerate the praise given to somebody else. And doshavishkaranam, so go on finding faults with somebody, that swabhava is asuya. And here you have to be anasuya, which means that you should not focus on the faults of others. Astu? And be ready to praise wherever required, compliment wherever required. Tyagaha, sacrifice or renunciation. Dhyanam, meditation. Aryatvam, honorable behavior. The word arya is very important, comes from ar, which means to cultivate as well as to fight. So Sri Aurobindo says in the Secret of the Vedas, he says the Aryan is that being who is ready to fight the battle of the inner world, to overcome their own limitations and bring greater degrees of perfection. Similarly, ready to cultivate the inner soil to grow the seeds of divinity within. So when we are talking of Aryan race and Dravidian, it doesn't match with the original context of the Vedas themselves. So a lot of things to think about, and these disconnections have happened because also we've lost connections with these original texts and their deeper concepts as we are seeing them here. Next, dhritihi, patience. Satatam daya, so consistently compassionate, not in spurts. Ahimsa, non-injury and non-violence. And atrapi Piyusha vadati, there are many concepts of himsa and ahimsa that are worth elaborating sometime. So, ekavaram militva gayama. Satyancha samata chaiva damaschaiva na sanshayah amatsaryam kshama chaiva hristitiksha nusuyata tyago dhyanamathāryatvam dhritischa satatam daya ahimsa chaiva rajendra satyakarastra. Why are all these qualities required? Because, and this is an invitation, Astu, this is my invitation to you to explore what it means to practice the truth. And you will see that in order to take it up as a project, take it up as a week's project, that this week I will try and speak the truth. And you will notice why, in order to be able to speak the truth or to practice truth in any given circumstances, all these qualities become necessary. Karotu, I had done it once and it was an incredible experience, but it's not always easy to do it, but it's worth exploring the challenges of practicing of truth. Okay. Another definition of Satyam, Shankaracharya Swagitayaha Bhashye Saha Vadati, in his commentary on the Gita, he defines it as Yatha Drishtasya Yatha Shrutasya Cha Atmanubhavasya Parabuddhi Sankrantaye Tatha Eva Ucharyamana Vak Satyam. So what is Satyam? Let's break it up, and this is, I must tell you, this is just one definition. Other people have brought in other shades also of the understanding of Satya. So he says Satyam is the spoken word, Ucharyamana Vak. For others' understanding, Parabuddhi Sankrantaye, of whatever a person exactly, which is Tathaiva, understood, Atmanubhavasya. So it has to be true to your experience and you have to convey it effectively in that manner as seen. So it has to be understood and seen, Yatha Drishtasya Cha, and heard, Yatha Shrutasya Cha. So our experience is generally what we have seen and what we've heard, and to be able to formulate that as accurately as possible and convey it to the person in front. This is all Satyam. And we see that it is not for no reason why the definition or why the motto of this nation was Satyam eva jayate nanritam. So let's look at what the Atharva Veda says on the qualities that sustain the earth. It says Satyam brihad ritam ugram diksha tapaha brahmayajnyaha prithivim dharayanti. And this dharayanti also could lead to the concept of dharma. What is the dharma that sustains the earth? And these qualities according to the Atharva Veda. What do they mean? Satyam, so truth. What is it that would allow the world to continue in its best way? The knowledge of the ideals of things. Next, brihat, vastnesses. When that knowledge can be implemented in the right, the ritam, as we can see righteousness, then we get these vastnesses, the brihat. And then ugram. There is this intensity. There is a non acceptance of any kind of limitation in that. Okay, there's almost like an aggressiveness in the implementation of what is right. No non-tolerance of anything that is not in tune with the ideal functioning of things. In a sense, it's a little bit the concept of adharma also, that the attitude towards adharma has to be ugram, it has to be intense and strong. Okay, and then diksha, skillfulness. There has to be skill in order to know the ideal and implement the ideal. There has to be skill. Austerity or penance, tapaha. It's not easy to implement ideals, needs a certain tapasya. It's a burning of oneself, because it's not about casual life. It is about knowing it and choosing to stick by the best. These are much easier said than done, but that is what is implemented. Offering to the Brahma Yajna. What does this Brahma Yajna mean? So Yajna is this idea that at all moments there is a give and take that is happening. So this give and take is happening at a cosmic level, at an individual level. So what should we give our energies to? This particular mantra asks us to offer to the Brahman. What is the Brahman really here? It is that if we can act with the consciousness of the underlying unity, the underlying expansiveness of the whole universe, or of the multiverses now, then we will never act in ways that are petty and small and discriminatory. So Brahma Yajna is the call to recognize the underlying oneness and the unity of all creation. These are those that sustain the earth. Prithivim dharayanti. Astu. So this is very important, and also becomes very important to understand, significant to understand here, the idea of Satyam eva jayate nanritam, the Mundakopanishad Vakyam that is chosen as our nation's motto. It's a Satyam eva jayate, truth alone wins, na anritam, not that which is not right. Why? Because the truth, if we can implement the ideal, then it will be a winner for the individual. And last but not the least, the idea of Satyam, if one could practice, I invited you to practice, you will see that one of the consequences of the practice of Satyam, which is also the yamas in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where he says, there are 5 yamas, things that you should not do there, but in this case he talks of Satyam. He says you must practice Satya. What happens as a consequence of that? He says that one who knows how to practice practice truth, whatever that individual says will come true. And then you can connect it back to a culture where what the rishis and all uttered would necessarily happen. The common individual talks and describes what happens. In the case of the rishis, those who have mastered their speech and their life energies, what they say will necessarily happen. There's a profound philosophy, and sometime we can possibly discuss that in greater depth. So moving on, so Satyam eva jayate na anritam, not the not right, and not your and my mid-level Satyas about things. Astu. Finally, to conclude on Satyam, a quote by Swami Vivekananda. He says, when a number of people from various angles and distances have a look at the sea, each man sees a portion of it according to his horizon. Though each man may say that what he sees is the real sea, all of them speak the truth, for all of them see portions of the same wide expanse. So the religious scriptures, though they seem to contain varying and conflicting statements, speak the truth, for they are all descriptions of that one infinite reality, that Brahman. And then he says, follow truth wherever it may lead you. Carry ideas to their utmost logical conclusions. Do not be cowardly and hypocritical. You must have a great devotion to your ideal. Devotion not of the moment, but calm, persevering and steady devotion, like that of a chataka, a kind of bird which looks into the sky in the midst of the thunder and lightning and would drink no water but from the clouds. Perish in the struggle to be holy. 1,000 times welcome death. Be not disheartened. When good nectar is unattainable, it is no reason why one should eat poison. There is no escape. This world is as unknown as the other. And these were taken from notes in Madras between 1892 and 93. So here you have the references. तर्हि अहम् आशां करोमि that you will practice the Napunsakalinga words as well, and with this we will be wrapping up the module 2. Move on to different things in our upcoming lessons. अतः कृपया अभ्यासं कुर्वन्तु, एषः आधारः अस्ति. एतत् यदि सम्यक् जानन्ति तर्हि अग्रे आत्मविश्वासेन सह गन्तुं शक्नोति. तर्हि शुभमस्तु, पुनर्मिलामः.